I shall call you Scruffles. Scruffles, look out! Look out behind you! No, Scruffles! No! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, SocioPsycho, and this is Mob Reviews, and today we'll be looking at Anomaly 2. This was created by 11-Bit Studios, available for PC, Mac, and Linux. It is a tower defense game in a reverse style. Instead of having waves of enemies come through your towers, you are taking a squad through a group of enemy towers and destroying them. How well does it work? How well does it play? And is it good enough to buy? That is what we'll be answering today, and let us begin with the options menu. When you go in here, you have a help menu, which is basically a tutorial and a little bit of lore. It's really your overall basis for understanding the game, which is really nice. When we go into controls, you can see there's not too much in the control section, as the game handles very simplistically, which is perfectly fine, but you are able to rebind all of your keys with ease. I have not had any issues with that. When we go into settings, you do have the availability for your audio settings to be split up on different sliders, which is definitely nice because the dialogue volume I found to be a little lower than the music and the combat sounds, so I had to reposition it and it worked out pretty well. But it's definitely nice. The music in the game is really good. It propels a sense of atmosphere and urgency throughout the entire mission, as well as the audio, and I'll let you hear the audio when we go talk about story. Video settings, there's not much to choose from outside of the screen resolution. And if there is a way, or if the game does automatically take to your default screen resolution, there's no way to pick in between. So from what I'm able to see or tell, 1920 by 1080 is the max screen resolution allowed. Now you do have graphic resolutional options, not much here. As you can see, it doesn't really offer an in-depth analysis of what graphics do have, shadows, or anything else. Graphically, we don't have too much options here. No shadow in-depth or VSync or anything really like that. The game graphically looks very basic, but it also looks nice. It is a top-down view style game, and it holds itself in a professional manner, and it looks decent enough for what it is with no issues whatsoever. When we talk about performance in the actual game, it has been running at 60 frames per second. I've had no tearing, clipping, or crashing, and I've had no performance issues. So when we come back out to the main menu, you do have leaderboards in the game. When you click on the leaderboards, it'll take you to Steam, as that seems to be where it's hosted and not actually in the game. The game has a severe point system to it, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But let's first also talk about multiplayer. Unlikely to find a random match if you get the game hoping for a multiplayer scene, as the game multiplayer-wise pretty much just plays against squad mentality going through the mission versus a tower mentality. So one person will play as towers, the other will play as a squad. As the main campaign, you play as the squad going through the story. It just offers a availability perhaps if you want to play against your friends on different maps. But the online finding of a game with a random person, highly unlikely. Which brings us to the mission select of the actual game. Now, as you can see here in this mission select screen, at the top you have your global score. Now, as I said, this game is really affected by a heavy interest in the leaderboard style and a score mentality style of play. You have your global rank, so it automatically tells you your place in the leaderboard, which is nice. You don't have to look that up if you don't want to, as well as your overall scores, you can see, and the different missions. And then when you select over the different missions, you can see your mission score, the score that you were able to get for that mission, your global rank on that mission, as well as the rank that you are categorized for that mission. It's nice to see that they really put the effort needed into making the leaderboard actually integrated into the game and not just a side effect of the game. Such as like, hey, look, we have a leaderboard too. No, they actually implemented it and coded it into the game so you can really test yourself against not only your own or previous score, but also if you wish to globally increase your rank. So that's nice. Now, there are 14 missions in the game, and that might be my biggest complaint with the game, as when you get to level 9, in level 9, you finally unlock your final hero ability, but you still don't have all the units by mission 9 to unlock and really enjoy the playstyle or play more in a way you may enjoy or like. And so with there only being 14 missions and by mission 9 you still don't have access to everything, there seems to feel and be a severe lack of content in the game. Now, if you do like the leaderboard style and you do enjoy competing against other players or bettering your own score against yourself, then yes, there is the option to continue to play other missions and even on higher difficulties. But if that's not necessarily a thing and you're looking for more of a, well, I just want to play a tower defense game and I just want to enjoy mission after mission and progress through the story, it's rather short and you may be disappointed in the amount of content available. So we'll talk about the story first, and we'll go in here and I'll show you how exactly well the voice acting is done as the story progresses through the game, mainly in a voice acting narrational sense, and we'll show you exactly how well that is done now.
One can say we underestimated our opponent. Project Shockwave deactivated almost all of the machines, but almost makes a big difference. The source of the anomaly in the machine's last line of defense remains intact, close to the South Pole. We're headed to Antarctica.
Our creators sent us here to prepare for the rebirth. You've destroyed most of us, yet you cannot impede this mission. Our creators will be reborn.
Most of the machines are gone. The anomaly itself resisted Project Shockwave somehow.
Its source is located deep in Antarctica. The machines set up their last line of defense around it. The area is packed with cocoons, like we saw in Rio. Dr. Xander says they're about to hatch.
So as you can tell, the imaging of the game ties very well into the storytelling and the voice acting of the game, which propels a terrific sense of this understanding of what's going on in the world and why things are progressing, and really helps you dive more into the actual game. The story is done in a very nice manner, as well as the professional voice acting, as you heard. Now, when we first get in here, we're going to talk about the user interface, as it is a reverse style tower defense game. You will be leading a squad of troops through enemy towers. As you can see here, the red are different styles of enemy towers which you need to destroy. On the right side are your hero abilities, your ability to repair your units, to throw a decoy so towers attack with decoy and not your troops, an EMP which will temporarily stun towers. With the availability, if you shoot that tower while it's stunned, it can wake up, but there is a chance that it won't wake up. And aim, which puts a increased damage and priority target onto a tower. So if you want to maximize your damage and take out one tower, then you throw aim on it. The interface is very easy and very sleek, and it utilizes itself in a very easy fashion to operate. You do have the availability to buy different types of troops, which is also very nice. Now when we come to the troops, you do have a small limitation of troops, but they can morph. So every troop has a secondary style that they can be used and implemented as, which really helps increase the liveliness of the actual game. Whether it be a simple hound, where you can transform into a hellhound, which does flamethrower damage instead of just machine gun damage, or a sledgehammer, which is pretty much a mobile artillery unit, or a rocket hammer, which is more of a close-range multi-rocket firing system. You have a guard, which either slows enemy towers' attack and movement speeds, or a shield guard, which gives everybody within 2 blocks a shield to absorb some of the damage. You have support, which is a heavy tank, good for front line, take a bunch of damage, and a drone support, which increases your hero abilities. And a supply servant, which has the availability to give you more hero powers as the enemy towers do collapse. We're going to put the heavy support in front, that way he can mitigate some more damage than the others. Now another thing to note is in the top you have your time. The faster you're able to get through the mission, it does calculate and add to the leaderboard skill, and here is your money value of the game. These triangle shapes are money pods which your troops can pick up. When they pick these up, you get an increase of money. When you get an increase of money, you can either replace troops that have died, or you can upgrade troops. As you can see, the upgrade capability will increase the different characteristics of your troop, and there are 3 tiers of that upgrade capability. You move around the map in a basic stance with this character, which is your hero. Your hero unit is able to put down the hero abilities, but they land where he is, so you have to make sure that you're carrying it out correctly. So before we get into the combat, one thing to talk about is actually the level design. The game is split up as a tower defense style, but you have the availability because it's a reverse tower defense, and you are the ones controlling the squad to go through enemy towers. It has large variable of route selections that you're able to pick from, and this is really nice. This is what one of the main picks of the game are. Because you're able to circumvent certain enemies in a fashion, and the levels are designed for this, you don't feel as if you're trapped. I found that the levels to be really large, and the different layouts may be similar, whether it be a jungle or a frozen tundra. The level of detail in the actual missions is what matters. Because there's such a fury of different pathways you can take, each one with its own difficulty or danger based on the towers that may be there, it gives you this option of, hey, if you are good enough, go the way you want to, or if you want to be maybe a little bit more careful or slower, try to find the least resistance pathway. The level designs are done very well, and they are large, and that does come into where some of the content is because the maps are so large. If you try to destroy everything, it can take a little extra time. But there is a variety of choice, and that's what matters when we're talking about the level design. The game does not feel linear at all, even though it's get to objective A or B across the other side of the map. You have options upon how you arrive on the other side of the map. So when we go into combat, you can tell that there is a difference between how your units and the units you decide to take actually very visibly are affected by the different types of towers. Now your units can morph into 2 different types, whether to be a slowing down enemy towers or to have a tank in front or a support unit for your hero abilities, or a more rapid fire or a slower fire. There are variables on the different units you have available and which morphed section of those units you have. Because there is that large variable, you don't just have 5 units, now you have 10 units because each unit can morph into another unit. But you would think, well, okay, then how can the game be challenging? And as the difficulty increases or the levels increase, the enemy or amount of enemy towers, as well as what they do, actually really implement strongly against your squad. If you're not careful in understanding your route, or you try to rush through and take on too much too fast, then it's going to seriously cause you some death or injury. As the game is rotated around a money sense, there is money you can pick up, which are the triangle-shaped items. As your units pass by, they will shoot them and pick them up, and you can either buy more units if your units are dying, or you can simply upgrade to Tier 3 Max the units you currently have, which increases their base characteristics. The fact that this is well balanced, and even at the harder side, does offer some intrigue or replayability options. They only have 14 levels, but they have a large variable in the difficulty in between casual, normal, hard, and nightmare, to a point where you don't really feel as if you're making progress overly easy. Yes, you do make progress, but it's not handed to you. You really do have to fight your way through and try not to lose. If you're not careful and you just try to rush through an area, or you're not aware of the enemies you're facing and you think, well, I can take these 2 lines of towers, your troops are going to be weared down pretty fast. And you may actually lose troops, which will go into you not having enough money, and bit by bit you'll be chipped away at, and you'll fail the mission. It is balanced. Yes, you have a large variable of different types of troops, but there's also a large variable of different types of towers. And so if you are not careful in not only what troops you select and how you engage the enemy, but what direction you take on the map, because when you bring the map up and the fact that you can change directions on the map is really where the goal of the reverse tower is. The availability that it's saying, hey, you can go around the map in these different regards. Sometimes you may only have one path through or one objective, one area to get to the end, but you can circumvent some towers here and there, and it allows the player the option or the ability based on how much time it's going to take to plan one path over another path, but it doesn't suffer from any linearness in the tower defense reversal aspect. And it allows people who may not want to combat a tower head on to have more of a flanking opportunity most of the time. The degree of different types of towers where you may go through an area and a whole bunch will pop up from out of the ground and cause mass damage on you. You may need to throw down a decoy. You may need to throw down a heal. You may need to throw down a EMP to stop the enemy units from being able to attack you. Whatever the case is, you are limited because you have to place those items down with your hero, and the items are placed down on top of where the hero is standing. So it's not as easy as a top-down commander interface where it says, I want to throw down an EMP on the top left corner. Now I want to throw a EMP on the bottom right corner. It's not that easy because your character actually has to be in the location for the hero ability to actually be placed down. Because this is the case, the importance of having the correct path for your troops, as well as the importance of not rushing too far ahead, is very, very important, as well as perhaps getting your hero troop as close as possible to support your main troops when available. And there are different towers which seek to make it challenging for you. I have not found that the game has a, well, it's going to screw me over atmosphere. There are different towers which can be a real nuisance, and sometimes those different towers that are real nuisances are put together, making it ultra nuisancey. But it doesn't over abuse that sense. There are difficult locations and spots, but the game is fair and balanced overall. And that's really what the important aspect of the game comes down to. You will find difficult locations, as well as the difficulty of the game is pretty high, but I didn't feel as if there wasn't a way for me to win. I completely felt that the speed upon which I complete my objectives comes down to my own personal skill, rather than some concept of the enemy being too mean or aggressive towards me. You can have different types of units, and these different types of units will morph into different things, but different towers will hit your different units for different damage amounts, and that's really where the variable is, because you will need to sell units at times, or replace, or move that one guy you had in front to the back if he's injured, or he might not be the most beneficial to have coming up against the tower. So you need to have a turn-based strategy sort of mentality, because you can pause the game at any time by either actually going into the map or bringing up the unit load screen, or even just right-clicking on the map, which will bring up a pause option as well. You can get, if need be, a visual understanding of what's going on. You won't be able to actually move around and plan attacks and everything else like that, because that aspect is real-time. So it has this in-depth combat system which really puts you on edge, and you need to plan ahead for the fights that you will be facing on the route that you do decide to take. And if you don't, then you're going to die. And the game doesn't hold your hand, and I can respect the game for that. I can respect the game for saying, if you are not going to take the time to actually see what's there, to be combative to the utmost that you should be against these units, and you die, well, that's your own fault. We're not going to feel sorry for you. And I can respect that. So at the end of the day, when all is said and done, the graphical and performance issues of the game, there are none. It runs smooth, it looks good, the story is well placed out and helps propel you through the game. It doesn't feel as if you're really having a disconnect from the actions you're taking from the story that's being told. The combat is really solid as everything is balanced, and I never felt as if the game has been wasting my time for any reason. And when it comes down to it, if you enjoy leaderboard style or perhaps score point style of beating your own score or playing the game on a harder difficulty as if 4 difficulties and really trying to improve upon yourself, then I can see this being an interest to you. But for me personally, the lack of content in the missions alone is a deterrent. There are only 14 missions in the game, and by mission 9, you still don't have everything unlocked. So more than halfway through the game, you're still unlocking and progressing your abilities, and then you don't really get the opportunity to play against all these different things. Yes, the maps are large and the level design is done very well, and overall, the game is something I would recommend. But if you're not somebody who likes to replay the same missions and likes to try to beat your score and get higher scores, and you're looking strictly for a certain number of maps or a certain amount of content or hours, then perhaps get this while it's on sale, because the performance and what it does mechanically, it does it well and it does it challengingly. And it just comes down to a certain degree of either personal choice over how much content there actually is in the game. So I can recommend this game, but you have to be aware of these facts. So thank you everybody for listening and watching, for I've been SocioPsycho, and I'll see you next time.